One of my favorite reflections came from an NBA coach who most would consider one of the greatest. He asked himself, does my way work? After pausing, he then answered, who knows? It's won championships, but it's also lost the greatest player in the world because I held the standard. There's so much experience that's laced with humility in that line. The reason you win can also be the reason you lose. That story underscores this episode. It features two championship level coaches, Mouse Holloway, University of Florida track and field, Rob Glass, head strength coach, Oklahoma State football. We're going to start with Mouse. Year one, University of Florida. He has to kick his best player off the team. He gets right into it.
Ricky was actually an NCAA champion at the time, and he wasn't excited that I was the new head coach. And I just told him, I was like, look, you can't be bigger than the program. Basically all of his life, he had been sheltered and protected because he was the best guy. So nobody wanted to discipline him. So I immediately let him know and I sent a message throughout the program that, hey, if you're going to be a part of this, it's about us. It's not a me thing. It's not an I thing. It's an us thing. And I will tell you this, I am unapologetically old school.
Coaches, when they do things that they swore they would never do to get kids, how do you process that?
That feeling people get from winning just it takes them over the top. So if you watch, I put it to you like this, people are jealous of something you have because they want it, right? But they don't know how to get it. We talked about this before. Nobody wants to go through the process. Everybody wants to go, okay, well, I'm at square peg zero. I want to jump to 25. There's a whole bunch of numbers in between there. So I was just patient and said, I'm going to just build this little by little. We took our lumps along the way. And, and Rob remembers those times, man. Like it was tough sometimes. It was really tough.
Hey, when you see, Rob, people manipulating athletes with materialism, where does your mind go?
I'm really concerned about our youth 10 or 15 years from now when what they're receiving now they can't get and they don't understand. Well, I don't understand my style of living or what I'm accustomed to. I can't achieve that now because I didn't stick to my academics. I didn't get my degree. I was into the short term world. But as adults, we were facilitating that because we were contributing to that because we were looking for that short term fix.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I just feel like, we're back on this instant gratification thing. We're back on this, okay, I want something for something I have yet to do. That's the confusing thing for me. If an athlete comes to school and there's a pay scale and there's something you can build to, okay, I get that. But if you're going to pay a guy $1 million a year to come to your school, what's his motivation to play hard? Right? What's his motivation to go to class? What's his motivation to be a good human? Where's the earning part of that? So I'm like Rob. Like first of all, I'm glad I'm older and I'm not going to be in this a whole lot longer, right? So because in 10 years, I don't know where this is going to be. But like I don't know, how do you motivate an athlete when half the time, like think about it, if you got a quarterback or whatever position in college football is making over $1 million a year, he's making more money than most of the staff, right? So how are you supposed to motivate that guy? Because he's gonna look at you and like, hey, I'll do what I want.
Well, that's what I love about both you guys because you all have a conviction to your craft that allows you to transcend any commercial elements and you both manage big rosters. So, Mouse, I'm going to present a scenario to you and I just like to know what you're thinking. Let's say you have a quarterback who's making $1 million and you both, again, manage big rosters and he's dozing off in one of your really short team meetings. How would you navigate that as the head coach?
I'm gonna wake him up and kick him out because, you know, I'm the head coach, right? And I'm trying to present a message to you, and you think you're bigger than the program, you know. And unfortunately for me, that's probably going to be $1 million we wasted because I'm not going to put up with that behavior because you can't win, especially I mean, we're talking about the quarterback, right? So if the quarterback's not dialed in, the offense is going to be shaky. So you have to start at the top of this. You have to cut the head off the snake and make it apparent right away. Like, hey, if you're going to be a part of this program, these are the rules. This is what we do. And if you don't like it, then you don't need to be here. It's just that simple.
Rob?
Whatever your team rules are and how you operate, then whatever the compensation levels, those shouldn't even have any relevancy. You've got to treat everybody the same, and you've got to live and stick to whatever policies and procedures you put in place, because as soon as you let one person deviate from that, the whole thing's going to unravel.
Rob, I watch both of you all do this, and it's very natural for you to do that. Why do so many people struggle with that?
I think sometimes and this is probably and Mouse can it'll be interesting to get Mouse's perspective. See, for me, I think as we've become older, we're more comfortable in our skin and who we are. And I think sometimes back to that young coach or that young administrator, whatever it may be, they're still number one, they love the gratification that comes and that piece of it, and they're willing to deviate from what they believe is
Rob, can I just pause you for 2 seconds? Here's the deal. I know both of you well. Mouse literally kicked off one of his best players when he was a young coach. You would do the same thing as a young strength coach. So help me understand what allowed you all to have that inside of you at the beginning of your career.
Well, I guess that was a good rebuttal, but I think for me it's just ultimately how that's just how I'm kind of wired, I guess. But I still believe for me to manage a large group that there has to be structure and there has to be a process. And early all of this stuff wasn't going on, so it was more about accountability and being a great teammate. So but I think that there's the the younger people, the pressures with the job, sometimes that they fold their cards and they break down. They don't hold true to what they believe, or hopefully I would believe they believe, or the correct ways to manage a team.
Yeah, and I agree with Rob. Like, it's just kind of innately who I am. As a athlete, I've always been the guy that kind of sat back and paid attention to things. And I would watch the guys that when I was a high school athlete, I would watch the guys that didn't practice hard. I would watch the guys that were always trying to convince me not to practice hard. And those are the guys that fell apart. And the people that hung around them were the guys that fell apart as well. And when I got into coaching, like a lot of young coaches, you come in and you just want to win, right? So my very first year of coaching, I had this young guy. He was going to be one of the best runners in the state, and he shows up late for the bus. Like, I can see his car coming down the street, and I tell the bus driver to leave. And the rest of the team is like, "Oh my god, what are we going to do?" I'm like, "We're going to go to the meet. And we're going to run." Now he chases the bus down, like he catches us. Like, I tell the bus driver, just keep driving. So we had to stop for lunch. I let him on the bus. And I told him, I said, "I need you to apologize to your teammates because you're disrespecting their efforts." And from that day forward, we were a better team because I left the best guy. And because you put that person in line, it makes everything else better. And I'll be honest with you, that's the way I was raised. Like, my dad didn't play. If we were supposed to be someplace at 10 and you showed up at 10:05, man, that was not good.
Let me ask you this. Let's say you're in an environment where they're not going to trade that guy. They're going to fire you. Okay, so now we're putting you in a professional world in the NBA. How do you navigate that?
Man, I'm gonna get fired. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get fired. I mean, I say so. And Becky and I've talked about this. Okay, though. So there's two environments that I can control, right? I can control my work environment and I can control my home environment. I don't do negativity and I don't do drama. The other thing is too, my good friends know, like, I'm gonna go home at night and go to sleep. That's very important to me. So if I've got all this stress and anxiety from one individual and I can't sleep at night, there's no job in the world worth my mental health, right? And too many times people hold on to things and try to be a part of something because, I've got to have the confidence in myself that I can go out and find another job. And that's more important than me appeasing some guy that, we think we have, because that guy in the end of it, he's not going to help you win. He's too selfish.
Rob, what is the biggest oversight for a guy that's used to working with smaller rosters coming into your environment with the complexity aspect?
Well, it's an interesting question because there's a lot of pieces to it. But I think if you're talking about the structure and accountability piece, it doesn't matter whether it's the best player or the number 40 on your roster. They're all held accountable in the same way, and they all, as to Mouse's point, they all witness that. Once you do that, you kind of calibrate your team, it things run so smoothly. If you don't calibrate, then every week you're worried about, okay, is the best player going to walk in 30 minutes late? How am I going to address the team? And if you just, as Mouse said, you deal with it head on with the very first time it happens, pretty much every athlete I've ever dealt with, even the best, they'll get back. They will realize, hey, this person, this coach, this is how you. If you want to succeed, you're going to have to operate within these boundaries, and they do it. Very rarely does even the best players. Once it's kind of like it's this little game. Sometimes they want to kind of see how much they can get, but once they know they can't get any row, then they kind of fall in line. Now the other piece, when you do have some adversity strike, uh, and we talk about, the team having some collaboration or insight or feeling like they have a voice, it's important to also kind of know the person that are having discussions, or am I listening to number 135 or am I listening to number five? Because in our organization, we only travel 70. I have 140 on the team. So sometimes you can get some disgruntledness and things like that, or things that have zero relevance, what's going on with the team.
Hey, I want to switch gears just a little bit. You and I have had so many conversations about how quick this thing moves and how quickly you can be forgotten. How do you process all of that, Rob?
Well, I think the more that you're involved in probably any industry, I reflect because it's the one that I actually am involved with, but it may happen in any industry. But you pour your heart and your soul and lots of hours of your lifetime into trying to have success and have good positive impact on young athletes. And you know, things move quickly. Just coaching moves quickly. And I told, uh, Brett, that it's interesting. You can work at Florida for 10 years, and 6 months later, you can walk by and they don't even know you work there. I mean, it's just crazy. And you're thinking, I poured all this time and energy into this organization, and 2 years later, it's a whole new regime. The message, the where they're traveling is in a different direction, and it's just was a little bit enlightening. And it kind of, to me, it helps you kind of calibrate work life a little bit.
Why do you think you looked at it as an enlightening perspective as opposed to a little bit of bitterness?
Well, you can't really control it. I mean, it doesn't do any good to be bitter. I mean, it's not how it operates.
Now, when your wife gets a little bitter, what do you do?
Try to do what you can to keep things smooth. Yes. But no, it is. But we talked about that in the coaching world, and you guys have had numerous, videos and coaches that have had tremendous success talking about, I got to the Mouse can probably, you get to the top of the mountain, you win the national championship. And then you wake up the next day and you're thinking, okay, what do I got to do? I got to do it again. And it never stops. Where's the end? And I guess for me, it's a little bit, and it could happen, and probably happens in all industries. I would think it. People pour their energy into investment banking, and then suddenly, they're out, and somebody else is in, and it moves forward, and it's just you're just kind of you're in a media guide somewhere that a couple lines or something like that whatever the team did that year.
Mouse, I want your reaction to this. A coach took a job, and I said, "Could you see yourself living here for the rest of your life?" And he goes, "You know how it is. Depends on how it ends." And it makes me think about people who stay in one spot and they pour everything they have, and then it does end bad, and then they don't feel comfortable in their own skin in the community that they've built for the last decade or two. How do you process that?
No, man, that's a tough one. I've talked to people who've been let go from jobs, and the common theme is like they didn't give me enough time. I was just about to turn it around. And I think a lot of it because we want the instant success, pour water on it and right away you're the national champion. And that's just not it's not realistic. And again, if you're gonna hire a young coach, it's more than just here's this big salary. How about we give you a staff? How about we give you the strength coach? How about we give you the director of operations so that you can just be a coach? And too many times in these things, they give the head coaches a big salary and then say, we're not gonna give you any money to hire a good staff. And if you can't trust me, I am the face of this program and we've been very successful, but I cannot do this by myself. It's impossible.
I would agree with Mouse. Every situation is unique. It's unfortunate that that's how we feel. I guess is I say we, but in those situations, how you feel that you feel like you're kind of maybe unwanted or something. It's kind of wild, really. And you're like, there's a lot of time and equity built within that community and that in that time frame. But I don't know. It's just it's everyone every situation is kind of unique.
I've been fired from a job once in my life. And I showed up every day. I did everything I was supposed to do. I worked overtime. I did everything I was supposed to do. And I got fired because the lady just didn't like me. And she told me, she said, I just don't like you. I don't want to work with you. So I got fired. But so then after that, I was like, well, let me figure out what my boss wants and make sure I get. I've never been fired again. So, but you have to understand the industry. If you're going to be a coach at any sport at this level, those things happen.
And Miles, maybe we could talk through this because you watched this all happen. And Rob, obviously, you work with Billy Donovan for a long time. So Billy had his last year before he took the Oklahoma City Thunder job was under 500. Now, he had everything going, and Billy's big philosophy was, I'm prepared to lose big to win big. So he was going to go at the problem, even if he knew that his team could go backwards. So he leaves, and then Mike White, the next coach, comes in and gets it rolling with the infrastructure that Billy built. And then all of a sudden, Billy was forgotten for a little bit. And it was, look at what Mike's doing, all this stuff. Now, obviously, it comes back around, but in that interim period, it can make you feel like, wow, like I am forgotten, as Rob said. How do you think about that, Mouse? Just because you're going to be transitioning out, obviously, you're convicted in who you are, so you probably won't struggle with some of those things. But just from a sociology perspective, how do you view that?
Well, I think that again, you have to be secure in who you are, right? And I don't think that the conversation you just had that I don't think that ever bothered Billy, and in my mind, it wouldn't have bothered me because you can't judge a person on one bad season. So I think that you have to have the strength within yourself to say, okay, I'm not gonna judge myself nor let other people judge me from this one season that I had. Billy Donovan turned Florida basketball into a national power and we can't judge him for 1 year. That's what way I was taking it, right? Like I coached, as Becky said, at Buell's High School, and within 2 years after I was like, we were like 8 times state champions there and cracked in cross country. Within 2 years, like people forgot I was there, right? But then all of a sudden, like you said, 3 years later, they're like, "What did you do to win?" Because now they realize that we have something special here. And it's the same thing with Billy. He built something very special here. So be proud of, be convicted in who you were and how you did it. You can't concern you. I don't. I'll put it like this: someone else's opinion of me is none of my business. No, I don't care what they think, right? So I'm gonna go to bed every night. I'm gonna sleep well at night, knowing that I got up every morning and busted my butt to be the best I can be. If people don't like that, that's on them.
There's a great line in coaching: if you practice what you preach, you're a fraud. If you preach what you practice, you're real. It takes inner strength to tell yourself the truth about your life, and your inner strength is directly correlated with the amount of truth that you can handle. So here are 2 questions for you to reflect on to find truth inside your current life experience. Question 1, when have you knowingly or unknowingly created a double standard? Question 2, what situation have you been most fearful to hold the line with? Why? And lastly, here's a thought for you to contemplate. An athlete said, you don't have to ride the wave that other people create. It's so true. Your self assuredness comes from the ability to tell yourself the truth and serve each moment with your highest integrity. When you simplify your life to that, the noise somehow goes away, and the clarity that's created allows you to lock into that moment. That's what it means to be rooted in the present. Thanks for listening.